And we have a quorum, even though it's. Right? So, I think we can go ahead and call the meeting to order, if that's okay. There it was. We've got quorum. We do, because I see Commissioner Leonard online. So Maria, would you call the roll?
Yeah, Chair Schwartz,
Present.
Vice Chair Evers,
Present.
Commissioner Drysdale,
Present.
Commissioner Scott,
Present.
Commissioner Wingart,
Present.
Commissioner
I'm having a little technical difficulty with my video, but I am present. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes,
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
and Commissioner Jacobs.
All right. So we have an agenda with a couple of public hearings and then a work session. Is there a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Oh, yeah. We'll go ahead and call the vote. And unanimous. Thank you, Jen. Okay, audience business. Unrelated to the public hearing. None, okay. Then I think we'll go ahead and move to our first public hearing, which is related to resolution 2025-10, a resolution of the Alliance Planning and Community Development Commission recommending the conditional use of a daycare at 418 High Street.
I can, I'm gonna try and share
So if there's a staff report, we can go ahead and start there.
okay. Okay, have it open, sorry. I'll just start talking before my presentation loads. One second. So we have our applicants here, and this is a conditional use, which, oh, here we go. Okay.
Well, while she's doing that, Kim, I know you've already started, but I do want to take the opportunity tonight to introduce our new planner.
Thank you, yeah.
I'm sorry, I stepped out to get you guys some snacks and you did roll call. So we are pleased to announce that Lisa Ritchie has started in her position. She's been here a week now. And she is catching on quickly, so I'll give her a chance when she does her in-between meetings, she can introduce herself a little bit, but just so you know who's sitting here, and you guys all know Cassidy. And as well, so Erin, do you need to be here?
Figured I would help families.
All right, that's me too.
Okay, so I'll introduce this. There's a lot more information in the packet, but this is for conditional use to open a daycare center. And this way. Okay, sorry, that's tiny. If you want to zoom in, we can. This is all included also in the staff report. But this is basically the criteria of approval for a conditional use. Yeah, I don't necessarily want to, I think I need to read it, but it includes how it aligns with the comprehensive plan. Can it adequately be serviced with public utilities, potential adverse impacts on the rest of the neighborhood, environmental impacts. So a lot of concerns there. That's your checklist for if this should be approved for today. And so what are we talking about or where? So we are talking about an existing building that is on High Street. It's the little red dot on the left picture, and then the arrow points to it on the right as well. So this is commercial downtown. And so yeah, on the same street as Moxie, just a couple doors down. And the building already exists, so and it will be used. So what are we doing? We're just changing the use from the current retail to daycare center. It is a conditional use, which is why it is here with you. it just requires that additional approval. And the staff finds that all of those criteria that we listed were met. And so this is kind of the case for all conditional use, but we're just kind of emphasizing that the conditional use can be approved, and then prior to the daycare center opening, we'll make sure that it comes up to fire code, building code, any of those changes that need to be made, because the use will officially be changed. And so a lot of that will happen in the business license inspection. So that is, I think if you look at Lions Fire, they kind of have some notes about that, so that'll be addressed afterwards. And then if you just wanted to see, this is also included in the application, but this is a little bit of the plan here, and I know it's tiny, but the building is existing, so what you're seeing here is already there. That's all I have. If Jesse, you wanted to say anything, you're welcome to do so.
Thank you. Yeah, I will stand at the podium. Give your name. Thank you. I'm Jessie Badirian. This is my husband, Tim. My address, 418 High Street. And we have owned the building for 2 years and spent 2 years developing a business plan and researching this particular venture here. I don't think we would want to do it if we felt like we were going to negatively impact other similar businesses. But in the process, I've gotten to know the directors of Lions Valley Preschool and some of the other people in town who have smaller programs, and we've just heard over and over again about the need. For example, Lions Preschool has a wait list of 40 families, and of those 40 families, only 20 of them will probably ever be able to get in to have care in town. So in looking at the comprehensive plan, which I will say as a side note, was an absolute pleasure to get to know that document. Daycare is listed as one of the goals going forward to fill in some of the essential need gaps in town. So we're happy to see that as a priority. And we're not changing the historical character of the building. And it really feels like it's in keeping with the street. There's already several businesses that service families and children. The dance studio and the elementary school is there. And what we would hope is that as families often have the option to stay local for something as big a part of their routine as driving their children somewhere every day, that would encourage them to use the other services and businesses on the street. The owner of the PT office across the street was really excited that we were doing this just for that very reason. Let's liven up this street. Let's get more business. Same thing as the manager in Moxie, just hoping to really vitalize that particular street. It was definitely interesting to us in the last two years to notice that you can just be one street off of Main Street and not get very much foot traffic, and it had be a lot slower. So to just support all of the businesses and the town in general in terms of essential services. I think those are the main points from what I saw in the comprehensive plan. But of course, there are other things like the kind of community building that a preschool, any school serves to be this sort of foundational business in the community where you get to know people, you volunteer with people, families form community, and we will be in community with the other people as colleagues as well who have similar work and hope to employ people in the community in both teachers and artists contributing to working with children. So I think that's it.
In case there's questions.
Yeah.
I'm just I was a co-founder of the Lions Valley Preschool, and I've done a lot of early public work, so I'm assuming you've kind of gone through all the licensing. And you're ready for that, and there's enough outdoor space to meet the criteria for that,
Yes.
so that's
Yes.
great. That's great.
Yeah,
Any other questions?
Yeah, for staff, can you go back to ask staff questions?
Sure.
Protocol, great. You said there was one condition of approval, and could you repeat that again, because I didn't quite catch it. Fire code.
Yeah, so Lions Fire, because of the use being changed from the current retail to hosting the daycare, there will be some changes that need to be made to meet fire code. And so after the conditional use is approved, they'll go through and meet, with Jesse and just make sure that everything is up to code prior to opening.
The condition of approval is included in the resolution, so you'll see it in there, the
Perfect.
more specific language.
And then the floor plans that were included in the application show existing and proposed. And it's two uses now, retail and residential. And so it'll just be one use after this, it'll all be residential?
no, we plan on maintaining that same footprint of a dual usage.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's unclear on that second diagram what the second use is. EOCC maybe, is that what the use is? I don't know what that is.
Right, there's,
Yeah, it's that plan that's there, but obviously it's very hard to see on the screen.
Oh, the daycare center plan up there.
The occupancy use, I thought was E.
I think what he's saying is you
Daycare.
see residential
What is E?
retail.
Okay.
Educational.
oh,
Educational.
Yeah,
Oh,
we
he's
have
saying what
a
is this?
They're looking for a loop too.
It is educational occupancy.
educational.
oh, yeah, thanks for
808
clarifying that,
square
yeah,
feet.
nice, okay. So, right, there's currently about 900 square foot of residential and about 1,100 of
1054 or something.
of commercial, and we'll probably keep it the same.
Okay, and just, not that it matters, but just to understand the impact of the application and decisions, let's make it for staff. Would approving this conditional use of the daycare and changing the use to educational for retail, would that be something that traveled with other owners beyond this owner? Or is that something that expires at the end of passing?
I will get back to you with the answer to that in just a minute. If you want to
Okay.
keep going with questions, I will look to see. If not,
I mean,
go
that
ahead.
matters, so it's just interesting. that-
Right, I would say a change of use is the change of use, that once you change, if it goes through, it would only matter if they didn't proceed all the way through and wanted to sell the business before it became an actual business. Once it becomes educational occupancy, that's what that particular footprint of that building is. So going forward, anybody else using it would have to use it as an educational occupancy space, or again, go through a reclassification of the occupancy code.
But the
As far as
zoning
build-
remains commercial.
this,
The zoning's not changing at all, the commercial development. This is only occupancy classification of a business in a space.
yeah,
If the new, if the new owner implemented something that was a use by right, would they still have to go through a process? Or-
Use by right is zoning, again, different from actual occupancy is based on building code. And if you wanna use the building for a different type of use, you have to go through what the occupancy is. So if a restaurant came in, it would have to go through whatever is required for that use. If it went back to retail, it would still be changing back to a different use from the educational. So the E is the occupancy classification based on the business use of that space. Not anything to do with our zoning code. Just for clarification, zoning code is commercial downtown versus commercial or residential zoning of an entire property.
to answer your question, our code doesn't say that the approval of a conditional use is tied to this applicant, so it could run with the land. However, you do have the ability to add reasonable conditions. My opinion on this one, though, because daycares are regulated by the state, and you know that if the ownership changes for this particular use, I think my perspective would just be to lean on the state licensing requirement to make sure that they're operating. So I don't think you would have to tie it to an specific owner, but I think you have that, you could limit it to them, but I wouldn't think you need to.
I have a question along those lines that you brought up, which has to do with if we were in 5 or 10 years to decide we wanted to do something like take away the residential portion and at that point make the whole building commercial. How does this application process relate to future choices? Like what would we then have to, would that then become a permitting type of issue?
Yeah, if you're going from a conditional use to a by right use, then you're just in your business license inspection and
Okay.
any building code type. You wouldn't have a zoning approval if
Okay.
it's a by right use.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, we'll have to double check commercial downtown, because sometimes it has that weird conditional, or isn't it sometimes they're in the residential and retail have to be together?
It would be more of a concern the reverse.
If it was all residential, it wouldn't be able to happen. But it could happen if you wanted the back to become daycare,
Mhm.
you would go through the occupancy again.
Okay.
But not the zoning.
Thank you. Okay, great.
Any questions? Any more questions? All right. So I think, we're ready to open the public hearing. And if there's any additional public comments. And if there's not, we'll close the public hearing. So I'll entertain a motion then to, approve resolution 2025-10 of the Lions Planning and Community Development.
So I'll move to approve, PCDC resolution 25-10, resolution of the Town of Lions Planning and Community Development Commission recommending the conditional use of a daycare at 418 High Street, Lions.
Thank you. There a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Any discussion?
With just one comment, I think this is a needed service and I'm glad to see it coming along.
Absolutely. All right, we'll go ahead and go to vote. And we have unanimous with Commissioner Wingard on mine as well.
And we also have
Thumbs up, winner,
Commissioner
or you say?
Oh,
Yeah,
hello.
Yeah.
She did. Eve is there too, yeah.
Hi, Commissioner.
Yeah.
Does she have?
Great. So Maria, you got
There you go.
Yes, hi, yes.
it. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, no.
Yeah. Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah, thank you.
So our next, agenda. Oh, I think I did.
You did one.
Yeah,
Close the public hearing.
thank you though.
She did, yeah.
So it's not- so our next agenda item, we're back to hear the hopefully final on the ADUs. So,
Yeah.
is there a staff report?
Yeah, I do have, just a real quick PowerPoint, just reflecting some of the changes. So I will share my screen here. Sorry. And I have the toolbar at the top, so I can't figure out how to get it to,
Mayor Rogan's gonna join now too. She couldn't be involved with the last one.
Okay.
there we go. Anyway, so, sorry. Should switch over to, there we go. So yeah, my name is Lisa. I'm very excited to be here with the town of Lyons. Most recently I've been in the town of Superior as their planning and building director, and previous to that I was in Louisville for a number of years. So worked in the Boulder County context for more than a decade now, and I'm very excited to come up to Lyons. So not wanting to step on toes, when I arrived, I noticed there were a few things in the draft ordinance that were a little inconsistent with the state law. So in partnership with the town attorney, who's not on tonight, but we can text him if we need any questions answered. We've made a few small minor changes to the ordinance to have it more be aligned with HB 1152. So as you know, the state law passed requires ADUs as a by right use on all properties where single unit detached homes are allowed. Y'all heard this on March 10th. We're back again tonight for reconsideration through resolution 11, SIRS 2025. So the two primary components of the change are the current draft has a restriction on detached ADUs on lots less than 6,000 square feet. However, we do have lots that are legal that are less than 6,000 square feet where the intent of the law would that detached would be allowed. So we can't differentiate in most instances between attached and detached and kind of where and how they're allowed. So we're striking that language. The other one is just a small tweak on off-street parking. So 1152 includes 3 conditions that must all be true. The first one is true in our code that off-street parking is required on the lot. The second is that off-street parking is prohibited on the block where the ADU is located and that no, there is no off-street space on the property. So we are just keeping, sorry, I did this a little too quick. The draft ordinance, whoops, sorry. I did this too quick. So the draft ordinance is keeping this phrase, there's no off-street parking on the property and off-street parking is prohibited on the lot. So if both of those circumstances are true, we can require off-street parking. And then the ordinance or the state law also gives us the authority to require designation of an off-street space if such off-street space exists. It's not in the draft, it's certainly open to your input if you think we should require designation of an off-street space. So I'll leave that up to you when we get into it. And then there are a number of just other just like non-substantive, just kind of cleanup items there. I'm happy to go into them. I don't have it, but I do have the ordinance I can pull up. So happy to take any questions and then your thoughts on designation of a space.
Oh, part of your hand was up.
Commissioner Drysdale, then we'll go ahead, Evers.
Just had a question with parking. Wonder if there's any way to build in a flexibility that if within easy walking distance, there's an on-street parking spot.
So say more to that, right? So that we don't require it if there's on-street nearby?
Yeah, that you don't require, that they have to have off-street parking if there's a reasonably convenient on-street parking.
So, the other option is, you could just not require off-street parking at all, right? So you could just say off-street parking not required, right? That unless you all know your town way better than I do, right? So if you think of the broad context of town, if you think that there's, most areas of town have an on-street parking space available, then you could just not require parking in any circumstance. Again, the bill allows us those 2 exceptions, and without knowing every block very well, we left it in, but that's an option too.
Well, that's an opinion perspective, and every year somebody brings up the problem with parking in Lyons, which I've been here 17 years. I've never had a problem parking, even during parades and.
Yeah.
I guess there's a possibility somebody could have to walk 2 blocks.
Yep.
Maybe.
If we don't require it. There's nothing though that would say that the property owner can elect to add it.
Commissioner Evers?
So just so I understand, we currently do not require off-street parking for a single unit.
No, we do,
We
sorry.
do.
2 off-street spaces are required for a single unit detached.
And we can require a third, the state is allowing if we want for an ADU. Or
Only if these 2 conditions are met. So you have to have all 3 conditions met. We have the first because it's required. But both of these 2 conditions also have to be.
bigger?
Yeah, sorry, you bet. So
They're on the bottom right.
Oh,
Just
sorry.
enlarge it with that.
So I mean, we're talking about instances where there are existing properties that were built or developed before the off-street parking requirement was part of their development, right? So like.
Yeah.
My home in 1906, good example, didn't have parking required at the time.
Right.
So we could say an ADU requires a dedicated off-street parking spot. The state's allowing us to do that.
Yeah, well, again, off-street parking has to be prohibited on your lot, on your block,
Has to be prohibited on your block.
on the block, so that you can't, sorry, on-street parking is prohibited on the block.
On-street parking, so parking on the street would be prohibited. Is there
Sorry.
anywhere in lines where it's prohibited?
No, we couldn't think of anywhere.
Yeah, usually, yeah, that would be really, really strange and, well, imagine it's, okay.
I mean, we're in question mode, it's not.
Yeah, sorry about
Yeah,
that.
sorry,
I put this
yeah.
together quickly. So
No,
yeah,
that's fine.
on-street parking has to be prohibited on the block. And no existing space exists on the lot already that can be used. If those two are both true, then we can require parking.
Thank you for clarifying.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then again, you could choose to designate if an existing space, you could require designation if one existing space exists.
Lisa, would you move that off of there?
Sorry. Yeah,
There you
there we
go.
go.
There you go.
Yeah, struggling with technology here.
Microsoft doesn't make it easy. do they?
It's all new, it's like, it's all the new windows from my last computer, so I feel like an idiot learning.
Any additional questions? No.
There's what was her chat?
Yeah, so it looks like she has a question around tiny homes. This draft ordinance does not change any language around tiny homes as ADUs. So that would all remain the same.
So Commissioner Nath, I think that's something we discussed then in previous versions and.
You have another question?
Yeah, Commissioner Evers.
What is the staff recommendation?
Approval of the draft ordinance in the packet.
And what did you choose around those three things in the parking?
We included the two, so if on-street is restricted and no existing space, we left the two options in the ordinance in case there's a circumstance or maybe there's a circumstance in the future. Again, the alternative I would suggest is off-street parking is not required.
Okay, so we would need to make a motion to discuss. Unless there's other questions for staff.
Yes.
Well,
Do we have to have a public hearing?
oh, I'm sorry.
I'll make a
Yes,
motion. If you
I
want.
think.
No,
Doesn't appear anyone's here, but you're right. I'm sorry.
Commissioner has a question.
Commissioner Nath?
Yeah, hi, sorry. I know it's not in the proposed changes, but I just wanted to doubly confirm that the limit on tiny homes does conform with HB 24-1152. It's not against it in any way.
We believe it to be in compliance, but we can confirm prior to going to the board.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, let's just, I think, acknowledge that, we offered public hearing and no one was here, and so we'll go ahead and close the public hearing with that. All right, and then, is there a motion on the floor?
I'll move for approval of resolution 2025-11 PCDC, resolution of Planning Community Development Commission of the Town of Lyons, recommending that the Town of Lyons Board of Trustees adopt an ordinance amending Chapter 16, Article 10 of the Lyons Municipal Code.
Great, thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Any discussion?
Yeah. Yeah,
Please, Commissioner Evers.
I don't think there should be any parking requirement. I think any hurdles to offering additional housing in the town of Lyons that's reasonably developed and not controversial in its funding should be, like, just, the hurdle should be removed. So I think we should have no parking requirement, but that's my opinion.
I agree, and I like the notion of supporting people who may use public transportation for having a place to live. And, you know, if this encourages more ADUs, I think that's a good thing.
Commissioner Scott?
Neil, didn't And I know you've worked on ADUs as an architect before, isn't the parking requirement, don't they have something similar that's restrictive? Does it actually?
They used to have some, I think where we've discussed in the past is they used to require in the city of Boulder that there was off-street parking dedicated for the ADU, not in the right of way. So it had to be inside of the setback, which was really problematic.
Yeah.
So if you were on a sloping site without an alley, we just didn't have an alleyway, you'd have to carve into your front yard and provide a driveway into the property, and oftentimes there wasn't spot for it. It's just a silly thing that ends up kind of causing a lot of problems without any real necessary meaning, in my opinion. I think the implication here is you could have a spot on your front setback, like that could be allowed, just like your. Actually, I don't know if that's true. We should ask clarification. Could we park a required parking spot for an ADU in the front setback?
Sure. I don't think we restrict that, do we, Kathleen? Do you know?
No, it'd be like your driveway in the
Right.
front. Yeah.
Okay, so the typical like newer development, 2-car garage facing the street, no problem. There's already one spot extra. One could park for the house, one could be for the ADU, but there's a lot of older houses, especially in the middle of Lyons, that would not be an easy thing for them to do, and they would have to improve their property at a pretty decent expense to provide an off-street parking spot. So I don't think it's worthwhile.
Yes.
The only reason we kept that one in there, we aren't promoting it by any means, but we wanted to leave it there in case something like, because we do have these 2 main highways. If there's an ADU along those and you can't park on it, if you can picture this area especially, you could leave it open as a requirement if you wanted to. But because we have a couple places you can't park on street, but not very many. They're not currently residential, but they could be an ADU.
I should address it.
Is there any way to put in some flexibility that there could be a judgment call if the lack of a designated parking space would create a safety issue?
We have the framework of the law to work within, so you can't be more restrictive than that, but I think if you want to say off-street parking is not required and these 2 circumstances are met. And, maybe one of these other things, we could add that in.
Yeah, that there.
To let them off the hook, I guess, if you're thinking that, like these 2 are met or.
It's more that if there were no available parking options and it created a safety issue. Is there a way to make it, in effect, a judgment call of a town official?
Possibly.
Or based on review, as part of the,
We add a 4th criteria, kind of is what you're thinking.
as part of the review process.
Or you could always leave it as the decision could be appealed to the planning commission or the board of trustees.
Commissioner Scott and then Evers again?
Sure.
I'll let him go first, or it might be more related.
Okay. Commissioner Evers.
I was gonna ask, is there discretion with the staff in reviewing an application for development that a parking spot might be needed in a certain instance? Like, is that something that a staff member can pull? Like, if there's a transportation issue, that might be a problem for the town that wouldn't necessarily show up in a typical by right application.
Well, now that they're used by right, there's not gonna be really. any
Yeah,
argument.
again,
There's no application.
Unless there's a
Yeah.
detached
Yeah.
ADU, yeah.
Yeah, we have the review. Again, we have the ability under the law to require it under, those 3. Again, I think you could, potentially add something else to it.
Well, if I can clarify,
Yeah.
the county or the city,
Mhm.
for instance, if there's certain things that the staff can kind of trigger during a review that require more design or more consideration. So like, if you're in a certain sloping site in Boulder, they can require civil engineering or drainage
Yes.
for development, where other things that would not be required.
We have the ability to apply any and all life, safety, fire, building codes, right? So those,
Right.
they can't.
But that's not a code thing, it's more of the discretion of the reviewer, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I think, I'm not aware that there's anything like that. The zoning code has to allow it, but if effectively there's something else that says you can't do it here because of X, Y, and Z, I don't know that we're prevented from that, but I guess I don't,
Well, what I'm getting at is
Yeah.
like, if there was no regulation for parking, no requirement, and an applicant was in a situation where they were along a street where there's no off-street parking,
uh-huh,
no on-street parking, sorry, I always get
Yeah.
that confused.
same.
And, and there was maybe heavy traffic like along this corridor
Yep.
here, where it wouldn't be safe to back in and out directly or park on the side of the
Mhm.
road, and there wasn't, could staff basically say this is a potential nuisance or problem for the right of way and require an off-street parking spot as part of the development approval?
Again, I
That's
think if,
possible, that might alleviate our concerns.
yeah, I mean, I think if on-street parking is prohibited on the block, we can require it. I mean, that would be. That would be.
That is
based-
one of those.
That is, yeah, we have that in there.
I see.
Yeah.
Do we actually have any blocks where on-street parking is prohibited? I mean, I guess maybe, or maybe on the highway, the highway, that's where you're, yeah, okay.
Or at the end of a cul-de-sac that's not wide enough, maybe, you know, there's in an alley that's, you're not supposed to park on.
Again, a future
Maybe-
circumstance, something might change. We might have a, pool or, yeah, we didn't want to predict, I think, maybe future changes as well by leaving that in.
Sure, Scott. So having lived in, owned a condo like in Capitol, not under Reno, you do set parking, it's 2 blocks away. Because we don't have an on-street parking space, so we're at those distance, lines is not even close to those kind of densities, so we're far away from that. Kind of being the transportation planner here, the option, because I'm the transportation planner for 10 years, yeah. Parking, on-street parking, when you have parking on both, when you have a lot of parking, it actually creates what's called traffic calming, you probably heard that, where it actually, people actually drive slower on streets, so. I mean, traffic, parking is always, deal with this all the time, that, people's issue with a lot of development is parking or traffic or whatever. And, in residential neighborhoods, especially if you let parking, when you're parking both sides of the street, you have a lot of cars that narrows the streets and forces people to go slower. It's a well-known traffic calming strategy. And so, I mean, in a residential, it could be, you have kids and dogs and things walking, so you have those conflicts, but you also, people tend to drive slower too, but yeah.
Right, any discussion from our online commissioners?
I just added a comment. I was wondering about affordability incentives. I don't see any in here. Are we planning to add any?
Yes, so we, part of the state law offers grants if we become what's called an ADU supportive jurisdiction. We don't have any included in this at this time, but that's kind of next on our list to research and develop, if and how we want to become an ADU supportive jurisdiction. Awesome. So
TBD.
TBD.
So we've had some discussion, I think, are we comfortable with the resolution as presented, or do we have another motion on the table?
Yeah, it's a question, to move our discussion prompt an amendment. I'm not sure.
I still don't know what we're safeguarding against if we have this, if we require parking in some capacity. I just don't know what it just seems like a hurdle that's unnecessary. I understand there might be instances we could imagine where it might be nice to have them. I just can't. Yeah. There aren't that many potential for development lines, so not that much potential for development. I'd be sorry to see, even if there's like the possibility of 50 lots doing this, it'd be sad to see like 3 of them not because of this one parking, right?
It's more likely that there would be 3 proposals in a year and.
Well, yeah,
Yeah,
that's reality, but even if 50
Yeah.
were possible, right?
Yeah,
right.
none of the 3 will have a problem. There aren't a lot of spaces along the highway for an ADU that I can think through. It's not impossible, but I think it's probably more, this is a test question, I'm not sure, but I think that the probability of an ADU being postponed or not done because of a parking requirement and the expense associated with a parking requirement is more likely than an unsafe situation along the highway, just from the composition of the town. So my thought would be to leave the requirement for an off-street parking spot off. And so that would require an amendment, right? So for this. So I move that there's an amendment to strike the condition for requiring off-street parking.
Second that. Now we can discuss that or vote on it.
Yeah. And just. Yeah, then we vote on the amendment, then we go back and vote on the resolution.
Yes.
So, okay, any discussion? On that? Yeah, I think that. The goal here, knowing too that there will be grant dollars. Probably coming from the Department of Local Affairs to help property owners, you know, create an ADU on their property, reducing the number of barriers to get there is what we're talking about, so. Yes,
And I would suggest that at that time, we revisit and maybe put the, if those grants would, for example, pay for our off-street parking development, maybe that, at that time, another amendment be made to the ADU code.
well, I think there's a market rate here too, right? If you can afford to do it and you are trying to rent your ADU and you say, you've got a parking spot. It's gonna help everybody, so. All right. Any other additional discussion? Okay, so we'll go ahead and go to vote, to amend.
Yeah, I would just say amend 0.6, just to,
0.6.
yeah, just number 6 on the ordinance, just to restate it, parking requirements, off-street parking shall not be required.
Off-street parking shall not be required. All right, go ahead and vote. And all yeas in the room.
She said no.
And. Commissioner did,
Jen's got a thumbs up. I don't know about Eve.
Yeah, you said yes in chat.
oh, okay, okay,
Okay.
great, unanimous. All right. Now we'll entertain a motion then to. We have the motions, yep, so we'll go ahead and vote to approve the resolution as amended. Okay, thank you, everyone. That was unanimous. All right, thank you. We have, our next agenda item is our consent agenda approval of March 24th. And I did have one correction. I think the vote on the triangle lot, Commissioner Jacobs and I were nays. It was not a unanimous vote. Do you remember that correctly? You were not
I don't
here.
remember that.
You were, yeah, you were here. Yeah, that's right. It's kind of,
But, yeah,
it's just on the, you talking about the
It was
minutes?
a 4-2 vote.
yeah. And I think the minutes show all of those were unanimous.
I'll make that change.
Thank you.
I was doing a lot of copy and pasting. We all do, don't we? Gotta simplify our lives, you know?
Yeah, you're just being with that publicly the rest of
Well, there were 6 of those in a row. I was like, oh,
Yeah, yeah. So it was Commissioner Jacobs and myself. So I would offer that amendment to the minutes.
You need to vote on that.
Yep,
We do? Okay.
I think so.
it.
Motion to approve as amended.
As amended.
Second, all in favor? Great, thank you. All right. Any general business?
Got guesses from Eve and Jen.
I think so. Yes to amend minutes, yep.
Sorry.
Thank you.
just checking.
Any general business? If not, we'll move to staff report. Staff report.
Do we have a separate?
My big report was introducing leads.
Okay, well, we can,
I'm trying to think if we have any other staff
I don't know if
reports.
there's any other updates we would normally do.
We do have a lot of development applications in motion right now. And, oh, the annexation of the Tebow property did get approved with the zoning they requested. So it will be commercial eastern corridor in the front and R3 in the back.
On the north side of Highway 66, right? Okay.
Yep, and then the next steps will now be to discuss a lot line adjustment on that property. And they've also already asked to meet with staff to look at what are some design options that we think are appropriate in the R3 zone in that neighborhood. And we're hoping to see some renditions of that shortly, so it's all sounding good out there. But we do have several other applicants. If you remember, the first meeting that I came to, I had a list of all sorts of projects going on. We have had the chance last week to meet, go through all of those, assign, and have a basic understanding. So we feel really good about moving forward. But it does appear we're gonna be pretty busy with development applications.
Awesome. I don't know. I don't know where I would ask this now, but, you know, a lot of, you know, we've been seeing the construction, I think it's the bike trail on the south side of 66. Then I guess people, they're installing a culvert for the ditch on the north side to help with drainage, seepage or something like that.
Yes.
The bike trail that's going in, now it's gonna go under 36?
It's going to end on the west side of 36. It's when Boulder County brings, or when Boulder County brings the Boulder to Lions Trail.
Yeah,
They will do the connection.
okay, and then,
And an underpass was actually put in after the flood.
I was gonna say, that was the other thing, yeah, they did it, yeah, okay.
It's there,
It's there, yeah, I was wondering, yeah, I thought they would do that.
but
yeah.
they're still, you know, they're still in the feasibility stage, and design itself is gonna take, I think they said up to 9 months. So it'll be a while. So ours will end. We have plans for kind of a little roundabout at the end. People, if you want to cross on your own at the light, you sure can do that, but the trail won't connect.
And then because of the Tebow development will be in the northeast corner, are they looking to have something underneath 66?
No.
Okay,
No.
okay.
No, you'll have to use the light for
The lights,
now.
okay.
The trail, the next phase of it will stay on the south side.
Mhm.
As you know, Mr. Tamburello for that property on the south side of the highway is planning to put his section of the trail in. And we are in the process of notifying the neighbor on the corner that they need to remove their belongings off of our right of way so that we can start working on that. But we did have the opportunity, I got to go out on Friday last week and it's coming along very nicely. It's gonna be a nice, it's about 3/4 of a mile, so out there and back is 1.5 miles. Nice little jaunt and mostly concrete. And I think it's gonna be quite a boost to Spirit Hounds and Circle K. Just the ease of getting out there without feeling like you are, you know, up against traffic going 50 miles an hour. Sure feels much better.
Yeah.
So their goal is they have till July 31st to be done, but we're hoping they might be ahead of schedule.
Commissioner Dreiser?
Thank you for that update, Peter. That really is helpful. Probably up until a year ago or so, we did routinely, the PCDC routinely got a report that updated the things that were in the pipeline,
Okay,
if you will.
Okay,
And that was, I thought, very beneficial.
yeah, I really,
Mhm.
like it too.
sure, we
Okay,
can
we can
start
look
that
at
up
that.
again.
Yep.
Usually I think they did what we did on our development
Mhm.
meeting, had a whole list of them. I think that's where it came from.
And if nothing changed, you could just like,
Sure.
just mark it, nothing changed, if something changed, you put it in red, you mark it, you know what I mean?
It's also for you all to know what's an active application and what's still kind of
Yeah.
a potential
Right.
application, so that's great.
And if there's a way of doing it without adding extra work,
Yeah, exactly.
We already,
We're
We
working
have
on
a-
it anyway.
yeah, we're doing it anyway, so it's fine. We're happy to do that. Especially with the list that we started with at the beginning.
We get a lot of questions as commissioners about what's going on in that lot.
Right now, I thought you were like, you don't know, I was like.
A resolution doesn't come to us, we don't really know, so it's just kind of nice for us to spread your good word about what's going on.
Yeah, so the trail, actually, just so you know, all of the box culverts, there are 3 ditches we had to cross. All 3 that have, well, 2 have box culverts and 1 has a bridge.
All the bridge.
And those all were completed on time for the water to come through, and they're all working. So that's really good. And then on that north side of the highway, that is a ditch company project.
Okay. Ditch company.
They were losing quite a bit of water. It was just an earthen ditch, and so they have enclosed it with culvert.
It says that they're gonna cover that culvert, is that what's, okay, that's how you fix it, or no?
You don't think they will?
They said at this point, it may be a little more than what they've done, but they were not planning to do the entire thing. And we can see where we can go. For those who don't know, ditch companies have a lot of a pull and.
Like it's pretty big.
And if they don't wanna do it, I don't know how much we can push, but we're continuing to see what we can do.
Could we propose public art?
That's what I was gonna say.
I thought you could paint pink and it would look like a worm going in the ground.
That's funny.
Do you have other development updates based on what we met about last week? You were putting it in the spreadsheet.
Updates? We'll get more organized for next time. If that's okay.
That sounds great.
Okay.
All right. Any direct action items? Maria, you'll send me the resolution to your signature.
Yeah. And I'll amend the minutes.
Okay, great. All right. And I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Sorry. I forgot we do workshop. Never mind.
Oh,
Yeah, we'll adjourn and then we'll go to workshop. Is that right?
Want you to
Yeah,
forget
yeah.
about last item. My bad.
Oh,
So that's fine.
are we ready?
Yeah.
Okay.
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Okay.
Second.
Okay. All in favor? Great. All right. That was unanimous. So we'll go ahead and enter our workshop in that, Cassie, we're counting on you to lead us through this exercise with efficiency and timeliness
Yeah,
as key points.
I don't want to keep anyone late. Okay, I'm gonna share.
Thank you, Maria.
Thank you.
And so you all basically saw the presentation already. So we've made some adjustments. So again, there we go. Why do an annual review? I've got all the pages on there in your packet. They were all snipped and then stuck in there.
any bigger, that left side doesn't show. If you can close that left column.
Oh, the slideshow. Yeah, so you won't be able to read the page now, but it's in your packet.
Yeah.
I think the big thing here will be trying to make this useful for boards and commissions, and not just an exercise that they dread. So I think emphasizing that this could help with budget requests, if they are looking to do that. And also like the annual report at the end of the year, this can be useful for tracking that. Just helps monitor process. And then some boards and commissions, I guess if they have nothing to do, they can refer back to some goals that they've set and start working on that. So we are still looking at the same pages that we were looking at last time. That's not new. And this is not new either. We do have all the boards and commissions feedback. It is not what it will be in the future. It's still not, I didn't go back to any boards and say, hey, can you re-review? But we are planning on starting this officially in, did we say June or July? June or July is when we're gonna restart the process for this year and have it be consistent, where that's the goal.
Right around the corner.
Yeah, so some might not be so happy, but we'll see. So this looks mostly the same. I added some color coding. That's probably hard to read, but on the side it says orange is recommended by at least one party to delete. Purple is recommended to change or assign the lead. And then blue is assigned a near-term or ongoing priority. And so hopefully, I guess this isn't a perfect example, but in the future, I would want to, if somebody wanted to change the priority, just the column would be blue in their specific recommendation. So it wouldn't go all the way across. Kind of like you can see the purple for UEB or LAHC is that column with 3 purple. So that's what that means. They are saying low priority, this should be under the scope of town staff. Not under the scope of LAHC, so that's where the recommend to change or assign lead comes in. And we'll also try and make it more clear to boards and commissions that if they want the lead to be changed, just be super clear and say, we think this belongs to UEB. So we'll try and kind of simplify that, but their third one, this is just one where they recommended a lot, but they said not the domain of this commission, but a big dream goal. So we'll try and track it like that. And then this report that brings everyone's feedback, I would like to have like a 2024, 2025, 2026. The document that each board and commission gets themselves, I think they can track that year over year and see their progress and recommendations. If this one were to compile years of, yeah, it would be so long to scroll and so long. And I emailed this to y'all, I don't know if you got it, but it is a lot easier to interact with in Excel form than it is in that PDF that's pages long.
Right.
So the recommended process, send notices to the boards and commissions prior to July meetings, make the reviews due by September 31st before budgeting. Standardize the feedback, ask them to input it into that Excel sheet and not into Word, not into somewhere else. And then to review all the strategies they're a lead or a partner on. And I don't think that needs to be thorough, but it can say not a priority, no progress. Or just move to this board. Because like, for instance, the SFC said, well, the ones we left blank, we don't think apply to us, but it would just be nice to get that feedback. And then maybe the next year they can just drag it along if it doesn't get moved. This year, we're hoping in May, I think it was, that staff can go through, and the lead on a lot of these says staff. And so for staff right now to go through, it would be me asking all the department heads to review every single tab for staff and decide when they should do input. I added a tab that has all of the different coding for lead, partners, and priority. So hopefully it already exists, like utilities or community development department. So we'll just hopefully go through as staff and actually reassign staff to whoever's job it is and not like a person, but a department. So then they can go through and actually give feedback and progress. So this year that should be done in May, and then the boards and commissions will have also feedback from staff that they can look at if they wanted. Yeah, and then we talked about having a staff liaison kind of look over the information that's coming back to you all, make sure it's relevant, and they can color coordinate it. We don't need to leave that up to the boards. The PCDC can recommend changes to the board of trustees, and then the board can make changes to strategies, priorities. But yeah, I'm hoping it'll be useful for the budget requests, the goal setting. The SFC's talked about, if you ever look at Netherlands website, their sustainable futures has goal 1, 2, and 3, and then how we can track this goal. So I think that's kind of nice if some boards and commissions did decide to do that. They could track progress and kind of focus in on something. Yeah, I also included in there a Word document that has this laid out. I'll share this page instead. Has it laid out in a Word doc, and there are just, here we go. Why, what, and why. We did have one board request why they're doing that. So that's there. And then it says, what are the steps for boards and commissions? And so we have like, even above that, oops, that must be typing error. There will need to be a yearly priority setting exercise by the BOT to set near-term strategies that reflect current board priorities, funding constraints, input from other town boards and commissions. So we've got all of the references to the comp plan starting, what are the steps for boards and commissions underneath? So we would provide that to them with their goals, so that it's a little bit simpler. And then what are steps for staff review? What are steps for staff review of board and commission comments? So that is all in there. And then the other question I had that I just kind of put in here was, is there any way to get community feedback as well? I don't know if you all want to incorporate that, but that is also an option to throw out a survey or something to the community. Yeah.
Wow. You created a whole process.
She did.
Mhm.
She
Oh,
did.
sorry.
Yeah, I want to thank you. This is a lot of work and very helpful, very, very helpful. This is probably the most complete framework, if you will, for comp plan review that I've seen here. It's really very, very helpful. But I went through it and added some comments here and there. And I highlighted them in, I think it's teal, but since I'm colorblind.
Reds and the greens,
I'm
don't
not
do
exactly
well
sure what they all look like, but I was wondering how I might be able to share it if it's a value, without creating a lot of work for anybody.
Yeah, I mean, we could talk about it here, but if it's comments you just want me to review, I think you can send it to me and I can review it and add it and.
Would
communicate.
it be best to just delete everything except the lines that have comment on them?
Either way, however form you have it in, if it's highlighted in some color, I can scroll through it easily and track it down.
I think that depends a little bit on you all, though, if you would like to be able to review. I mean, we have, we could bring up the draft, you could discuss it too, if you want to consider it tonight before we get too far.
Because, I only made comments on maybe 5 to 10% of the thing, so if I eliminated everything I didn't comment on, it'd be a lot easier to share it and just glance through it and say, we don't know what he was smoking that night.
Well, just dumb question. You're definitely commenting on the data and the cells. You're not commenting on like the structure of the process.
Correct, it's only the data in the cells.
Okay. Oh, on changes that you want to make.
Changes to the comp plan.
Okay.
Oh,
So that's like PCDC's review
Yeah.
versus, so it's just a little bit of a step back. We were trying to work to put together what your comments were from the last meeting and your thoughts. And a lot of it was about, we need to refine the process for the next round.
Yeah.
So this first round is, okay, in the PCDC's quick review of it, because this is just supposed to be an initial review from those first pages where it's not anything where we have a lot of big updates, because this first round took some time to really understand the process behind it. So that putting together here what we think would be the PCDC's recommendation going forward for how to do a better review the next time around. And let's get it started in a couple months just to keep everybody fresh and going for the next round. I think if what you're saying is yours are specifically part of the PCDC review, they could be added into the spreadsheet as part of the PCDC's review of their portion that they're reviewing versus, as Commissioner Evers said, the process behind it.
But it could also be one of the process steps, which would be, what's the easiest way to share it across the PCDC?
You wanted how to share it.
Yeah. So if it's okay, what I'll do is I'll make another copy of it and just eliminate everything I didn't comment on and share it with PCDC.
no, can you share documents outside of email back and forth?
No, but staff can send it
Staff
one
can
way.
send it, yeah, you can send it to Cassidy,
Oh, that's
and then
right.
Cassidy can send it to you all. Yeah,
okay. Excellent. And Lisa, hopefully you're bringing some, I'm sure feedback on this process.
I have not, Cassidy's got this well under control, but, I will get up to speed prior to next discussion.
Okay.
We've only been here a week.
Yeah.
It's true.
Give her, that was like a minute.
Yeah, well, this seems like a great amount of work. Commissioner
Yeah.
Winger
Yeah.
commented too in the chat, so I wanted you to see that, Cassidy. So,
Let me turn on, is it connected to the computer?
Mhm.
Like, we just turn on the chat so you can see it.
oh yeah, you just.
I guess Karen's got, it's probably better than Neil doing it.
Thanks, Karen.
So were we to go through these
Yeah,
orange ones specifically, maybe it might be the right move, or
what do we need to do?
yeah, I guess maybe like Cassie, what do you recommend, like where we're at right now? It seems like you got the process wrangled. We could probably tweak it and ask questions, but I don't think there's any reason to. So is the step now to like go through some of these recommendations by different boards and commissions and like approve them unless there's a reason not to? And that seems like, or is that putting the cart before the horse? What do you think?
It's a good question. Did we decide that we are doing that this round or?
We were talking about, since we're so close to already having to review this again. Because we really would like the review to happen more in that August timeframe, August, September, so the board has it to make both budget decisions and legislative decisions for the next year where they want their priorities. We thought if there's nothing, you know, earth shattering and it's just reassigning people and things like that, maybe we should wait and do it for August.
Fine. You just redistribute this as, hey, I took all your comments, here they are. We double check what you wrote.
But I mean, if there's bandwidth and you guys want to, we certainly can, and it'll be cleaned up for August.
Yeah.
It's really up to you, but, that, as you guys know, the state statute just says that you need to, you know, let the board know you have done a review
Okay.
at this point, and then, we could share the process with them of what we want to do moving forward.
I think the biggest blank spaces are a lot of staff comment on this
Staff.
round, where some of them were assigned to staff and maybe the partner didn't respond, or maybe the partner was Boulder County. So those are kind of our biggest question marks.
So then maybe we could work at the staff level between now and August.
Okay, that sounds good.
The only thing that felt wholly inappropriate of this first draft was the EAB suggesting a new staff position and then sprinkling it throughout their entire review. So that might be something like when it's redistributed in August, kind of letting them know, like, that's not really the nature of the review, would you mind like editing that out of your now thing?
Okay,
Or we
yeah,
can do
that's,
that.
Cassidy's the liaison to them, so.
Oh, perfect. The next time you'll get in front of it before they do it.
Which board, which was it?
Ecology.
EAB.
Ecology. That's
I put a section in for other comments, so we could also tell them, you can put this in the other comment or like the goal, but like, don't include it in the analysis because that doesn't align.
Right, and I think that's part of the reaction coming out of that first round was the reaction, at least from my review, and I think some of us agreed, it was like, we didn't give any guide rails to them to say, here's what the purpose of this review is. And so I think because of that, their imagination was left to run free, right?
Yeah, sure.
Next time around, just frame it probably
Yeah.
more specifically.
I
And
think
if the
that's what,
staff has now something to actually work with when we go back to our individual boards and commissions. Yeah, okay, here were your comments. We're gonna review it as part of the next year's review, rather than, okay, we're gonna review it, and then we're gonna redo this again in 6 months.
Right.
We're just moving into the next year.
I think it'll be helpful too to go through these all as staff in May. I think May is the goal, because then the staff liaisons will know like exactly which part of cause I think some were looking, if you like dug into the comp plan, there are the strategies at the end, and then in the middle, we have some stuff that's really similar, but not exact. So I think some were actually looking at those instead of, what was typed. So hopefully we'll get that nailed down as staff and then cleaned it up.
Yeah, I mean, that would be one like shocking change to the comp plan is putting the implementation strategies first.
There you
But that's
go.
probably not easily edited, but that would be a great way to do the next time around.
I think this process, you know, we had staffing changes, we had, there's been a lot of adjustments. So I think we have a good team moving forward to get this cleaned up. re-roll it out again in August, they're all gonna go, what? We just did this. But looking at it from a different lens this time.
I think some won't have to spend a lot of time on it at all.
No,
And then others will, some that skipped half of their strategies will have more work to do.
you're just saying, hey, we put it in a new format, would you double check what you did and make sure that still applies, right? Like that seems easy. No problem, that's awesome.
Great, thank you.
All right. Nothing else then on this? We're finished at 7:09.
Oh, wow. Is that a record?
Letting them know.
Send
Isn't
it
that
to the
what we
board?
said?
Yeah.
Our old planner.
They
what's
should
his
probably
name?
give us
Dave
direction. Oh, they can't.
The younger guy who was with Yanni at the same time.
No.
Do we need to take this from next
Yeah.
time?
Paul Glasgow.
Didn't his spouse work in Superior in the planning department, or am I crossing wires? What was his last name?
Did Philip's spouse work at Superior?
Yeah.
Philip Strong,
Yeah.
Bridget.
Bridget,
Did
he
you
worked
work
at
with-
Superior?
Did you work with Bridget in Superior's planning
It's
office?
not
She
a
went to
name,
Lafayette, I think.
yeah, I would say that's not a name I've heard in Superior.
Did crossover.
No.
I was just curious, I was like, small.
We all play musical chairs, so it's kind of likely we.
Right, well, you gotta stay put.
That's my plan.
So, we can't really take any votes or anything in a workshop, of course, but, I'd like just one, as we wrap this up, if the statute says you must send just a note to the board letting them know that you've done this review. Or maybe it can be done, having just Chair Schwartz come to the board and commission and give them that update verbally. Maybe we could take care of it that way for this annual review. But we could talk with you on the side when we do our.
Great.
follow-up.
I can do that.
Okay. I know there's an availability May 5th. That might be a good time for board and commission updates.
I cannot do that then.
Okay,
That's the only.
I'd send your co-chair.
I never had to do one during my tenure.
Oh, okay, yeah,
But if you wanna do it, like wait till the next one, it's not urgent.
no, I mean,
Either way. Or we can have a staff memo written up on your behalf or something, but we can talk about that at our
Okay.
follow-up meeting.
okay, great. And then our next meeting is
2 weeks, 28.
in 2 weeks, 28th, okay?
Is there a
We'll
third
see.
meeting in the month?
There's not this one.
No.
No, I know, it's a kind of a wonky month, so this was our first of April, even though it's the 14th.
5 Sundays in April, in March, or 5 Mondays in.
Yeah, okay. Do we have any idea what will be?
At your next meeting?
Yeah.
We can do an agenda setting tomorrow.
I don't know that we'll have any ready to go.
Conditional use. We might have an annexation application. No, Merkley?
That would be
No.
great if we do. We might have. a
Anything
meeting.
else you can think of, Erin?
We might.
I don't know where generator development talks about getting it submitted, but.
We'll let you know.
Often set an agenda setting
Okay.
meeting like the day after.
Okay,
So it would be like tomorrow, but it doesn't sound like we're ready for that, so
I'm
should
not
we
aware of
just?
anything. Ready.
Not ready.
Yeah.
So if something comes up like public hearing wise, we'll do a meeting on the 28th. If not, maybe we'll be done doing a meeting on the 28th.
Okay.
Go to you, Chair.
Yes.
Okay. We will decide within the next couple of days, so that you all know for planning purposes if we're gonna have a meeting or meeting.
Okay. So thanks, everyone.
And if not, we are doing a board and commission training on the 29th of the month. Not specific to planning commission, but if anyone wants a refresher or has never been through training, that would be a good time to attend. It'll be that evening.
29th.
Tuesday of April, 6:30 to 8:30, and there'll be a note coming out probably tomorrow. So if you don't have a meeting and you want to have a refresher.
That's everyone.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Aaron, would
Thanks,
you
Mayor.
stop the
Here we
recording?
go. Dang it, I really enjoy it.
You stop the recording.
Thank you for
Do the
calling
audio
on
on
video
video
first.
first. Stop
I
that.
totally had it written wrong.
Yeah.
That's fine.
No, I mean, so I have a 3-year-old and my brain is applesauce.
No,
so was
I
like,
wrote it
I'm
wrong.
not getting this. I don't know
No,
what I'm-
he was nice. Well,
Stop it.
there's-
No worries, yes.
Anyway,
Yes.
I have to down a couple people that